World War II didn't begin with tanks rolling into Poland. It began in silence, in defeat, humiliation, and a peace that solved nothing. On November 11, 1918, the guns of World War I finally fell quiet. Germany surrendered. The Kaiser fled. An empire collapsed. To the outside world, it looked like the end of history's bloodiest conflict. But inside Germany, a dangerous idea was already taking root. Many German generals and soldiers refused to accept that they had truly been defeated. They claimed the army had been stabbed in the back by politicians, socialists, and civilians at home. This story is strong, straightforward, and really hits home. It would mess with German politics for years. The loss wasn't the army's fault. It was all about betrayal. The Treaty of Versailles turned that bitterness into rage. Germany lost territory, its colonies, and much of its military. Millions of ethnic Germans suddenly found themselves living outside Germany's borders, trapped in newly created states like Czechoslovakia and Poland. Even worse, Germany was forced to accept full blame for the war and pay crushing reparations it could barely afford. This wasn't reconciliation, it was punishment. Across Europe, old empires were broken apart, and new nations were stitched together in a hurry. Borders were drawn on maps, not along ethnic lines. What looked like freedom to some felt like injustice to others, and those unresolved tensions became ticking time bombs. Meanwhile, the one institution meant to keep the peace, the League of Nations, was born weak. The United States, its strongest potential enforcer, refused to join. From the very beginning, the New World Order had rules, but no teeth. World War I had ended, but the conditions for the next war were already in place. The Germany that emerged after World War I wasn't just defeated, it was unstable, angry, and fragile. The old monarchy was gone, replaced by a new democracy known as the Weimar Republic. On paper, it was modern and progressive. In reality, it was born into crisis. From the very beginning, Germany was torn apart from the inside. Armed clashes broke out in the streets between communists and extreme nationalists, each convinced the other was destroying the nation. Governments rose and fell with alarming speed. No one seemed to be in control. Then came economic disaster. In 1923, Germany's currency collapsed. Hyperinflation spiraled so wildly that prices doubled in days, sometimes hours. Life savings became worthless overnight. Ordinary people carried wheelbarrows of cash just to buy bread. The middle class, the backbone of any democracy, was wiped out and humiliated. This chaos created fertile ground for radical voices. Men who promised order, pride, and simple answers to complex problems. One of them was a failed artist and war veteran named Adolf Hitler. Hitler was a gifted speaker who understood something crucial. People in pain don't want nuance. They want someone to blame. He blamed Germany's defeat on enemies within. He spoke of national rebirth, strength, and revenge. For a country drowning in shame, his words felt like oxygen. His first attempt to seize power failed. In 1923, he was arrested after a botched coup and sent to prison. But prison didn't end his ambitions, it sharpened them. There, he wrote Mein Kampf, laying out a vision of racial purity, expansion, and dominance in Eastern Europe. For a brief moment in the mid-1920s, Germany stabilized. Extremist parties faded, democracy survived, then the world collapsed again. In 1929, the US stock market crashed. The global economy imploded. German unemployment soared past 6 million. Desperation returned, and this time, democracy had no answers. In elections, the Nazis surged. By 1932, they were the largest party in parliament, and in January 1933, believing they could control him, Germany's leaders made Adolf Hitler chancellor. They thought they were using him. They were wrong. While Europe was still trying to understand Hitler, the first real cracks in the global order appeared far from Berlin. And they didn't come from Germany at all. They came from Japan. In 1931, Japanese military officers invaded Manchuria, a vast and resource-rich region of the northern China. The decision wasn't even approved by Japan's elected government. The army simply acted on its own and got away with it. A puppet state was created, and China was humiliated. The League of Nations condemned Japan. Japan responded by walking out. Nothing happened. That moment mattered more than anyone realized. It proved something dangerous. International rules existed only if someone was willing to enforce them. No one was. Soon after, Italy followed the same path. In 1935, Benito Mussolini invaded Ethiopia, one of the few independent African nations left. Italian forces used modern weapons, even chemical gas, against poorly equipped defenders. It was brutal, illegal, and impossible to deny. The League imposed sanctions. They failed. Britain and France refused to risk war. Both were exhausted by World War I, crippled by the Great Depression, and terrified of another bloodbath. Peace had become their obsession, even if it meant ignoring aggression. Hitler was watching closely. As Japan and Italy expanded without serious consequences, Germany began testing the limits too. Hitler openly rearmed the country, violating the Treaty of Versailles. He rebuilt the army, created a powerful air force, and sent troops into the Rhineland, a territory Germany had been forbidden to militarize. Again, Britain and France did nothing. Many told themselves Hitler was only reclaiming what was rightfully Germany's. Some even admired how he restored national pride and reduced unemployment. In 1936, Berlin hosted the Olympic Games, presenting an image of strength, order, and respectability. Behind the spectacle, Germany was preparing for war. By the mid-1930s, the lesson was clear to every dictator watching. Aggression worked, treaties were meaningless, the League of Nations was powerless, and the democracies would retreat rather than fight. The road to World War II wasn't being forced open. It was being left unguarded. By 1936, Europe wasn't at war, but it was already rehearsing for one. That rehearsal took place in Spain. When civil war erupted between Spain's elected Republican government and nationalist rebels led by General Francisco Franco, it quickly became more than a domestic conflict. Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini saw an opportunity. They poured in troops, aircraft, tanks, and weapons, turning Spain into a live battlefield to test modern warfare. German bombers flattened cities. Civilians were targeted from the air. The destruction of Guernica shocked the world and changed war forever. Britain and France watched and stayed neutral. To Hitler, this silence was confirmation. His new weapons worked. His enemies lacked the will to act. Then he moved. In March 1938, German troops crossed into Austria. There was no resistance. Many welcomed them. Within hours, Austria ceased to exist, absorbed into Nazi Germany. This was the first time Hitler erased an independent country from the map. Again, there were protests. Again, nothing happened. Next came Czechoslovakia, a democracy with a strong army and modern defenses. Hitler claimed he was only protecting ethnic Germans living in the Sudetenland. War suddenly seemed possible. Desperate to avoid it, Britain's Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain flew to meet Hitler. In September 1938, Britain and France agreed to hand over the Sudetenland in exchange for Hitler's promise that he wanted nothing more. Chamberlain returned home declaring, "Peace for our time." It was an illusion. Within months, Hitler broke his word. In March 1939, German troops occupied the rest of Czechoslovakia, a territory that wasn't German at all. The mask finally slipped. This was no longer about self-determination. It was a conquest. And by now, Hitler was certain of one thing: no one would stop him. The world had failed every test. Only one remained. By 1939, Adolf Hitler no longer feared the democracies of Europe. He had watched them retreat again and again, trading principles for promises. Now, he was ready for the final move. His next target was Poland. Once again, Hitler used a familiar excuse: German minorities stranded beyond Germany's borders by the Treaty of Versailles. He demanded the return of Danzig and a land corridor linking Germany to East Prussia. Poland refused. This time, Britain and France finally drew a line. They promised to defend Poland if Germany attacked. On paper, it was a turning point. Hitler wasn't impressed. What still worried him was the East. A war on two fronts had destroyed Germany in World War I. He would not repeat that mistake. So, in August 1939, Hitler made one of the most shocking moves in modern history. He reached out to his greatest enemy. On August 23rd, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union signed a non-aggression pact. Publicly, it was a promise of peace. Secretly, it was a death sentence for Eastern Europe. Poland would be divided between them. The Baltic states were marked for Soviet takeover. Stalin believed he was buying time. Hitler believed he had been given a green light. With the Soviet threat removed, there was nothing left to delay the inevitable. On the night of August 31st, German forces prepared for invasion. Border incidents were staged to justify the attack. The machinery of war was set in motion. At dawn on September 1st, 1939, German troops stormed into Poland. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war. World War II had begun. But the truth is harder to face. The war didn't start that morning in Poland. It started years earlier when lies replaced responsibility, when aggression went unpunished, and when fear silenced those who could have stopped it. The invasion of Poland was the explosion. The fuse had been burning for decades. That's it for today. If you liked this video, make sure you were subscribed to this channel, and don't forget to share your thoughts down below.